be the next part. And we're going to do a screen recording again so we can watch another video because this is too cool. So here we go. Start the video.
Since 2002, a team of scientists from the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute has been studying whale falls at different depths within the Monterey Canyon, which have revealed new insights about how these systems function. Dead whales that sink to the seafloor represent a massive pulse of energy to an otherwise nutrient-poor environment, and this feast in the deep can host diverse and abundant communities of organisms. When whales first arrive at the seafloor, flesh-devouring animals like hagfish, sharks, crabs, amphipods, polychaete worms, and rat-tail fish, seen here, strip soft tissue from bone. Once devoid of flesh, bacteria begin to colonize and, in turn, bacterial grazers and others come to feed on the concentration of food that the decomposing skeleton provides. Most of these organisms appear to be background taxa, organisms commonly found at the depth and habitat type where the whale fall occurs.
Look at all the
However,
starfish.
at whale falls they may occur in higher densities than normal, such as these brittle stars. Many new species have been found through this research, including these bone-devouring ossidax worms which specialize in digesting bone through the help of bacterial symbionts.
And those are annelids, so ossidax worms. We'll watch another little half a minute of this, and then we'll go and talk about them.
Most animals aren't dependent upon whale carcasses for their survival, and even the ossidax worms can utilize bones of other organisms and are not dependent upon whale bone for their survival. Surprisingly, this research showed that whale carcasses can degrade rapidly, depending on the size and age of the whale at death and the environmental conditions where the whale fall is located. We found that carcasses degraded in less than a decade, most likely due to the high abundance of ossidax worms, which excavate the bones with root-like structures that bore into the bone, fragmenting and degrading it. 15 species of ossidax have been found in Monterey Canyon, and they appear to occupy different niches. Some break down the laminated surface of bones, some bore deeply into bone, and still others feed on fragments of bone buried in the sediment. Several new species of bone-devouring snails have also been found at these whales and may contribute to this rapid degradation. Once the feast has ended, it's back to famine for these inhabitants of the deep. This is Lonnie.
All right, there we go. That's kind of neat. And you're going to go want to watch this one. I won't put it all up on the screen, but it's about the bobbit worm, which is right here. And this is another one of these blind little annelid worms. It's got a great little set of pincers on the front. And just watch this thing. It works like a bear trap. It's really, really gruesome and yet totally, totally compelling. So, yeah, you're going to want to watch to the end. So I'm not going to spoil the surprise. But go look for it. It's on my Blackboard page, bobbit worm eating, right there. And if you want to see somebody how they catch bobbit worms, it's a long video because it's a long worm. But yeah, you can see it there. And you get a person there for scale, so that's kind of neat. Okay, so let's go back to this. There we go. Yeah, so these are ossidax, and they are a bone worm. So it's kind of written right in the name. The os is like osteo or whatever, osteoporosis, think of that. And so that's always going to mean bone whenever you see that in biology anywhere. And the edax is basically a word that means eat. So bone eaters, that is their name, and they are going to make a living by drilling into bones. Now what they're looking for in there are little tiny pockets. There's not much, but there's a little bit of protein and a little bit of fat inside of these bones. And there are going to be different components that are going to eat each of these things. And so let's go forward and see. All right. So ossidax are very unusual annelid worms. You could classify them as polychaetes if that had any meaning. And they do live by burrowing mostly into the bones of dead whales, but maybe those are just the ones that are easiest to see. They'll burrow into bones of dead anything. And yeah, they do this despite not having any teeth or stomachs or mouths. Oh, neat. So they're going to do this by secreting acid down at the bottom. So this is the entire body. That little bit that was sticking out at the top is right here. That's the sort of pretty bit. The bottom is really neat. So it's two things. It is a giant ovary for making brand new little eggs to make brand new little bone worms. And it has these bacteria filled little chambers. So, oxidacs are going to rely on this particular kind of bacteria. They're called Oceanospirales, and that's a very good bit of window dressing for your answer, because oxidacs worms are totally worth talking about. Totally. Let's see. And so the bacteria actually live inside the worm. The worms don't start out with them, but they pick them up as babies and cultivate these bacteria after they settle on whale bones. Yeah, the feathery plumes that come out and are really colorful are going to act as gills, and yeah, the bottom end is going to house those bacteria. And so, if I remember correctly, I think the bacteria are there to eat the protein, and the worm is there to eat the lipids, the fats. Either that or I've got that backwards, but it's one or the other, and we can figure out which one it is. Let's see. The other interesting thing here is that these things are like a non-stop baby cannon. So all the big ones that you see of this particular species are going to be female. There are males, but the males are teeny tiny. So the female has this sort of slimy collar right around there that she secretes, and there will be a harem of little tiny, between 50 and 100 microscopic dwarf males, like little tiny, tiny men that live all around there. And so the female is going to be constantly producing eggs, and she is just firing these eggs out into the world. And then the male's job, the reason why they're living there, is that she will feed them, and they are to make sure that every single egg that goes out will be fertilized. And so female Ossidax worms will release hundreds of these little egg cells at a time, and they get fertilized on the way out. And so they reproduce continually. They are always about making babies. And so, yeah, even though there aren't that many dead bones at the bottom of the ocean, you get lots of these things because they're constantly sending out babies. And so most of their babies go out into the world and die because they don't find anything to eat, which is kind of sad. But every once in a while, one of them just happens to land on a brand new, freshly dead whale with its bones showing, and then oh my gosh, it's a smorgasbord that can last for years and years. So that's pretty darn cool. Um, so that's one type of ossidax, but let's see. Here's a different one that's found in a seal bone. In this one, they have dimorphism, but the males are just about a quarter the size of the females, and they can actually feed for themselves. The other species of ossidax, the males are parasitic. Yeah, it's called a parasitic male situation, which, ooh, yeah. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know how you feel about that. But yeah, little tiny, tame, parasitic males that, yeah, you keep in your little harem for when you need them. Neat. Annelids are very interesting. Very, very interesting and strange. The rest of the figure on this page is going through some of these little annelids and looking at the males and females. Here you can see that little sac at the bottom where the bacteria and the eggs are going to be. Yeah, that's what they look like. That's how they operate. So this has been section Annelid 2. Remember we started at 0, so it's the third section. All right.